But let's get into the final segment. My favorite segment today, I don't know. Maybe it's not my favorite segment. I really like the how Lamar can win MVP segment. That's my favorite segment probably ever, just talking MVP stuff. But this comes from the Live with the Viewers. If you guys don't know, Live with the Viewers, we do a show and y'all ask questions. We get a lot of questions. We cannot answer every single question that gets asked. However, when we go back through after the fact and we look through them and we're like, hey, was there a question that, maybe we missed on because there's just a lot of comments coming? And typically there are. So this one is kind of redesigned, but it was from the Live with the Viewers that we did, and it was actually from the Purple Rain podcast that commented it. And so shout out to the Purple Rain podcast. Great stuff over there. Go check out their channel and things like that. But what they asked us who's a bigger threat in the AFC, the Browns or the Titans? And we're going to modify it and just talk about who's the biggest threat in the AFC for the Ravens. And we'll talk about more teams than just the Browns and the Titans, but we'll definitely talk about them as well. And I don't even think we need to talk about the biggest competitor. I think we put them at the top, the Chiefs. Would you agree with me, Joshua? The Chiefs are like the number one competition.
They've had our numbers. So, yeah, definitely. We got to put them up top.
So we do not need to give the explanation as to why things like that for the Chiefs. But now there's the big question. Who's number two? Who's the second biggest threat? We've lost to the Bills in the playoffs, but we beat the Bills in 2019. This was pre-Stephon Diggs. But then we lost to the Titans in the playoffs in 2019. But we beat them this year, but we lost to them in the regular season this year. And then there's the Browns who, have played us very closely, and they look like they're going to be pretty solid this year. Which of those would you say is the biggest threat to the Ravens this year in terms of the AFC?
I would still say the Titans, honestly, because the rivalry has been ignited again. I was able to see those games. I was able to see the games between Ray Lewis and Eddie George. I remember when Ray Lewis knocked out Eddie George, and I also remember when Ray Lewis knocked out the fullback. He had number 45. I can't remember his last name. Now, fast forward, you got Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel played for one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's now taken all that information he done soaked up and brought it over to Tennessee Titans. And I love the way Mike Vrabel's his style of coaching, for the simple fact that he stays true to their identity. Because in the playoffs, it did not matter how we was working out and beating them. He still believed in giving the ball to their best player, which was Derrick Henry, and still running play action. Now they have added the addition of Julio Jones. Like I said before, you don't know which Julio Jones you're going to get. You don't know the durability of Julio Jones, if he's going to be healthy for all 17 games. But they still have A.J. Brown, and they still have a Ryan Tannehill that runs their system to perfection. Because in the system that they run, you don't need all the star stellar talent. All you need guys that understands the mission and is gonna go out there and get the mission done, which they do. So when you see the Tennessee Titans and when you see the Ravens, man, it's that new rivalry, and you love it, man, because when you see them get out there and get nasty, disrespect our field, and then Marcus Peters return the favor with the pick. They get in the middle of the field, disrespect their field. That, man, it's good. It's good to see like they try to bring that vibe of old school football back. So I definitely would say we have each other number. So we just got to settle that score. We just got to continue settling that score and let them know who's who. So I definitely put Tennessee at number 2.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the Titans, in terms of for the Ravens, if we were doing an AFC, rankings and things like that, I probably wouldn't put the Titans 2. But in terms of the Ravens, I think they're definitely the biggest rivalry for the Ravens in the NFL. I'm going to say Ravens-Titans is the biggest rivalry in the NFL as a whole. And this is because of the true anger that you see in the eyes of not just the players, but the coaches. When they go out there, they're stomping on logos. They're doing all this stuff. You don't see that in the rivalries in the NFL today. You know, you see the trash talk coming out. You see Deshaun Elliott lowering the shoulder, you know, to try and take out Derrick Henry, and he does. Like, all that type of stuff is just exactly what you want to see in a rivalry. And that being compared with the idea that the Titans get Julio Jones, who the Ravens, you know, a lot of Ravens fans wanted. You know, I bet a lot of Ravens players also just wanted Julio Jones to come. The Ravens were interested prior to the draft, but we've both knocked each other out of the playoffs recently. We've also knocked each other out of the playoffs plenty of times in the past. Like, this is a legitimate rivalry that is the most heated in the NFL currently. You know, yes, there are more historic rivalries like Ravens Steelers and Bears Packers and that sort of thing. But come on, the Bears Packers, Aaron Rodgers destroys the Bears every time. That's how it works. He just does. Ravens Steelers, yes, it's still very, very good. However, it's just not – football isn't allowed to be played in the same way it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Yeah. So the way that they played in terms of the helmet cracking hits and things like that, just not allowed as much anymore. So that kind of takes it away. But the history is still there, you know, but the Steelers are kind of on the decline. I don't think they're gone yet, but they're on the decline with Big Ben, you know, seemingly near retirement. But the Ravens Titans is legit. This is the absolute best game to watch. If there was every possible game scenario on at one time, and you can only watch one game, you know, I could be watching Chiefs Ravens, I could be watching Chiefs Bucks again, I could watch, you know, Seahawks 49ers, whatever you watch, I'm watching Ravens Titans. That is the game I'm putting on my one TV. Like, that is what I'm watching because it's just so heated. They both want to beat you in the same way, outrun the opponent. It's the exact same way that they want to play every time. Yep. And they've got – it's just so good. I would agree, Joshua, they are the number 2 biggest threat to the Ravens because we don't know how good Julio will be there. I think he'll be really good. Now, then it's like, okay, how are they going to try and beat the Ravens? Is it going to be like how they beat the Ravens the first time in the playoffs where it was like, running the ball really didn't even matter? It was Ryan Tannehill in the play action that dominated us. Or is it going to be more like when they played the Ravens in this most recent season, in the regular season, where it was just run the ball with Derrick Henry? Which one are they going to do? And that it's just a chess game between the Ravens OC and obviously Greg Roman versus the Titans DC, who I don't know who it is. He used to be Dean Pease. He's no longer there. He's in Atlanta now. But then the Titans OC versus Wink Martindale. And it's just a perfect battle of teams that want to – I mean, it's like the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Like, that's what happens every time on both offense and defense. So that's why I think they're the biggest threat. But in terms of Bills and Browns, how would you rank those two in terms of threats in the AFC?
I would have to go Browns 3 for the simple fact that, you know, the Browns have been building. We definitely got to give them their respect. You know, Baker Mayfield, and I don't know who's the coach over there, but seems like they're finally getting right with the coaching. And these guys are finally playing. I mean, granted, you know, Odell, you know, and his durability is not the best, but Jarvis Landry, you got Njoku, I forgot what other tight ends, but I can't forget about the 1-2 punch. I don't like it, but I respect it. Nick Chubb and Mr. Kareem Hunt. Especially Kareem Hunt, I got to give him his props. You know, he went through what he went through. He took that prove it deal, and you know we see how it's been working out for him. Nick Chubb, that's 1,000-yard running man. And you know, with us being known for run stopping defense, the way he was able to run the ball on us, the way he did, it's like, I don't like you, Nicky, but you know, I understand your mission. So, and then you got to look at that defensive side of the ball, man. You know, you got two of the best young corners over there. If they both stay healthy, you got one of the scariest defensive ends in Myles Garrett. And and they just continue adding pieces, and they're finally putting together. And you could tell they finally putting together the way that we battled to close that dang on game out. With I guess we could say an alien Lamar Jackson. So each year they keep on progressing. They're definitely a team that you're going to see, in the playoffs. I mean, we got to think about it. They was a team that left out of Baltimore in the middle of the night as well too, and so it's definitely a lot of history there. So I definitely, and then they're actually playing. They're actually playing good. I mean, we all remember the days when Cleveland used to be Cincinnati Bengals. Now it's almost reverse, just about. Like the Cincinnati Bengals when they had Carson Palmer, Ocho, Richmond-Zada. I forgot who was the running back then, but whatever. They had a decent enough team where they can, be third place in the AFC North and, give you a decent enough game. Where, Cleveland Browns, they didn't know who their quarterback was going to be. They barely had a defense. I remember Josh Cribbs. Josh Cribbs played a little bit everywhere for them. So definitely, man, I definitely feel like Cleveland Browns are the third team.
I disagree. Now, I think there are definitely still Bills and Browns, I think both, they're definitely like competitors in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think that the Bills are just a little bit more scary in terms of quarterbacks.
Okay.
Yes, the Browns, I think, have the better roster. I think they have the better team. But the Bills may have just pulled off the only time we've ever seen Lamar Jackson get stopped, other than the Chargers game.
Okay.
Like, that is like a bit concerning to me. And 2019 Ravens-Bills was not an easy game. The Ravens almost lost that game, and that was pre-Stephon Diggs. I'm trying to remember the score, something like 17-10. Marcus Peters had the late pass breakup in the end zone on I think, fourth down. Mm-hmm. But it was all based off of Hayden Hurst catching that nice little lob pass from Lamar and taking it. But, like, the Ravens haven't been able to score very well on the Bills. And the Bills aren't known for their defense anymore. They were, like, 4 or 5 years ago. They were kind of seen as like, oh, the Bills defense, but their offense isn't very good. They're like the exact reverse now. Now it's like their offense is crazy good, but their defense, they can't stop, anything except for the Ravens, I guess. I don't know why. Like, Lamar put up 3 points against the Bills. Now, granted, Justin Tucker did miss 2 field goals. So, in a normal weather game, maybe the Ravens, it was more difficult throwing the football. The weather is things like that. It's just like playing in Buffalo, though, is more scary than playing in Cleveland, in my opinion. But Cleveland is definitely scary just because they have also, like, had games where they go absolutely off on us. But for me, the ultimate X factor deciding between games is quarterback. Especially in the playoffs, typically the better quarterback wins most of the time. I say most of the time because when the Titans beat the Ravens, it was not because Ryan Tannehill is better than Lamar. It was because of the run game and things like that. But most of the time, it's the better quarterback or the quarterback that played better on that day is the one that won. And Ryan Tannehill did play better than Lamar Jackson when the Titans knocked out the Ravens. I trust Josh Allen to play better, more consistently than Baker Mayfield. I love Baker Mayfield, though. This may seem weird on the Ravens channel. I'm a massive Baker Mayfield fan. But for me, he's just a bit inconsistent when you're able to get that pass rush on him. He does struggle, whereas Josh Allen this year was just very consistently very good. The only time I really saw him truly struggle was the first game that he played against Kansas City. He did struggle in that. But I think Josh Allen is the ultimate X factor in that. And for that reason, I say Bills then Browns. But I think Bills and Browns are very, very close. I think it's really close, a lot closer there in terms of them versus the Titans being in that gap. I think it's a little bit different. But I think that's it for this episode, unless you have anything else you want to add, Joshua.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Well, if that's the end of this podcast episode. That's the end of this final segment. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. Subscribe for Daily Ravens content on YouTube. Give a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast if you are able to. Thank you, everybody. We'll see all of you again tomorrow or next week if you're just listening to the podcast, not watching the YouTube channel. If that's the case, go check out the YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody. See you again then.